I'm literally hiding in my car right now, hands shaking so bad I can barely type this. NGL, I never thought my life would turn into one of those Reddit posts. I'm Ethan, 34, married to Amber for 7 years, and until tonight, I honestly thought we were rock solid. But at Chloe's birthday party, Amber decided to play some sick game, and now everything feels like it's falling apart. I still can't believe what I saw tonight. It's like my wife, my Amber, just became a completely different person. We were at Chloe's 35th birthday party, a low-key gathering, exactly the kind of place you expect to chill with friends. NGL, I was already a bit annoyed because Amber had been giving me the cold shoulder for days, accusing me of flirting with a waitress, Sarah Miller, last week when we went out for dinner. TBH, I barely remember the waitress. Just asked for more water, but Amber blew it completely out of proportion. She kept saying I was disrespectful and needed to learn a lesson. I just brushed it off as Amber being Amber. A little dramatic, sure, but usually it blows over. I was wrong. So wrong. The party was in full swing, music playing, people laughing. I was chatting with Mark about my photography business when I saw her. Amber, she was at the bar, not looking for a drink, but clearly on a mission. And her target was Chad, a dude I'd never seen before, who was leaning against the counter, looking way too pleased with himself. My gut clenched. It wasn't just a friendly chat. Her body language was aggressive. Her hand kept brushing his arm, her head tilted back as she laughed a little too loudly. It was the kind of flirting you do when you're single and looking, not when your husband is 20 feet away. I felt this weird mix of shock and denial. Like surely she's just being extra social, right? Trying to make conversation with a new face. But even as I thought it, a cold dread started to spread through my chest. Mark, who'd been mid-sentence about his new boat, suddenly stopped talking. His eyes were fixed on Amber. Brenda, who joined us, gasped softly. Is Amber okay? She murmured, her brows furrowed. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. It was undeniable. Something was seriously off. Brenda, bless her heart, went over to Amber. I watched, pretending to be engrossed in my drink, but my ears were straining. I couldn't hear every word, but I saw Amber's hands flying, animated. Brenda's expression went from concern to downright worried. Later, Brenda pulled me aside, shaking her head. Ethan, she's trying to make you jealous. She called it a wife test. Said you needed to know how it felt after you supposedly flirted with that waitress, Sarah Miller. A wife test. My blood ran cold. This wasn't just a game, it was a deliberate strategy. A double standard, Brenda explained. She said if you can flirt, so can she. She's applying your standards to you. My head spun. The whole Sarah Miller thing was a total non-event. This was insane. Brenda gripped my arm. Look, Ethan, I told her not to cause a scene, especially at Chloe's party. Please just handle it calmly. Calmly, my hands were already starting to shake. I watched as Amber, emboldened by whatever conversation she just had with Brenda, strutted over to where Chad and his friend Kevin were standing. She didn't even glance at Kevin. Her eyes, her whole focus, locked onto Chad. Oh my God, Chad, I love your shirt, she exclaimed a little too loudly, her voice dripping with an exaggerated sweetness that made my teeth ache. It just screams adventure, Kevin, looking visibly uncomfortable, tried to interject. Amber, you know Ethan, right? Amber cut him off, not even turning her head. Oh, Ethan's around somewhere, she said dismissively, her eyes still glued to Chad. But you, Chad, you just have this aura. It's captivating. Chad, clearly thriving on the attention, puffed out his chest a little. He was one of those guys, you know, a self-proclaimed ladies' man who thought he was God's gift. He flashed a practiced, dazzling smile. Well, Amber, I do try to bring a little adventure wherever I go. So you're ready for some? He leaned in conspiratorially, and Amber actually giggled. Giggled, like a teenager. Mark, seeing my face, clapped me on the shoulder. Heads up, man, she's really going for it. Don't fall for the trap, whatever it is. I nodded, a knot forming in my stomach. I knew what she was doing, but knowing it didn't make watching it any easier. Kevin, bless his heart, made another valiant attempt to pull Amber back to reality. You know, Ethan's a pretty adventurous guy too. He's a photographer, travels all over for shoots. Really creative stuff. He shot me a quick, sympathetic look. Chad just scoffed, waving a dismissive hand. Photography? Pfft, anyone can point a camera. I'm more of a hands-on kind of guy, you know? Builds things, creates with my own two hands, not just snapping pictures of someone else's work. He flexed his biceps subtly. It was such a blatant jab at my career, at me, that for a second I thought I misheard him. Amber just smiled, nodding along, her eyes sparkling, as if Chad had just dropped the most profound wisdom. She didn't even defend me, didn't even flinch. She completely ignored Kevin after that, her entire being focused on Chad, laughing at his lame jokes, leaning closer with every word. I could feel my face getting hot. My jaw was tight. I heard whispers from a group of women near the buffet. "Oh my God, look at her," one said, giggling. "Her poor husband is right there." Another chimed in, "She's not even trying to be subtle. That's just rude." Rude, eh? It was more than rude. It was a punch to the gut. I stood there, rooted to the spot, feeling exposed, humiliated. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of it. Was she serious? Was this real flirting? Or was she just pushing me, trying to get a reaction? Part of me wanted to storm over there, grab her, and drag her out. The other part was numb, just watching this car crash in slow motion, unable to move. I was so angry, so confused, and so utterly desperate to understand what the hell was happening to my wife. The party was just the beginning, a weird, jarring prelude to what would become an agonizing descent into confusion. In the days that followed, the wife test thing escalated into something much uglier. Amber became a ghost in our own house. Her phone, which used to be casually tossed on the counter, was now glued to her hand, screen down, or tucked away in her pocket. If it rang, she'd practically pounce on it, her back turned to me, whispering into it, then quickly hanging up. When I'd ask who it was, she'd snap, "Just Brenda, planning something." Gosh, Ethan, always in my business? She was always busy now. Suddenly there were a million new errands, impromptu coffee dates, or late-night shopping trips that she needed to do alone. "Oh, I totally forgot to pick up that special spice for dinner tonight," she'd say, even though we had a pantry full. Or Brenda wants to check out this new boutique. It's a girl thing, you wouldn't understand. She used to hate shopping alone. Now it was her go-to excuse. The emotional distance grew, a chasm opening between us. She was irritable, constantly on edge. Every little thing I did seemed to set her off. I'd leave a coffee mug on the counter, and she'd launch into a tirade about how disrespectful I was, how I didn't appreciate anything she did. It wasn't just nagging. It was a deliberate chipping away at me, a constant stream of criticism that made me feel like I was walking on eggshells. She'd find fault in my photography, my cooking, even the way I breathed. "Honestly, Ethan, you're so loud when you chew," she'd say, staring at me with a cold, disgusted look. I tried to talk to her, honestly. "Hey, Amber, is everything okay? You seem stressed. We haven't really connected since the party." She just rolled her eyes. "Oh, here we go, the deep talk." "Ethan, you're overthinking everything as usual." "I'm fine, just tired. Do you know how much I do around here? Maybe if you pulled your weight, I wouldn't be so stressed." It was gaslighting, pure and simple, twisting my genuine concern into another one of my supposed failures. One afternoon, while I was tidying up the bedroom, trying to find a shirt, I stumbled upon a small, neatly wrapped package tucked away in the back of Amber's closet. It wasn't gift wrapped at Amber's, but it wasn't a normal Amazon box either. The return address was just a generic P.O. box, no company name. It was small, light, and felt expensive. I resisted the urge to open it. My stomach dropped. Why was she hiding a package? And from whom? When she came home, I had tried to be casual. "Hey, babe, noticed you've been out a lot lately. Everything good with Brenda?" She stiffened immediately. "What's that supposed to mean, Ethan? Are you tracking me now? I told you I have friends, I have a life. You don't own me." Her tone was sharp, defensive, way out of proportion to my simple question. That's when I knew. This wasn't just a mood. This was a secret. I called Mark. I just needed to talk to someone, needed a reality check. Dude, I'm losing my mind. Amber's different. She's so distant, always on her phone, always out. It's like I don't even know her. Mark was quiet for a moment. Yeah, I noticed it at the party. She was really putting on a show for Chad. I mean, not just for you, you know, she was into it. And Brenda's been worried too. She thinks Amber's spiraling. His words hit me hard. She was into it. That's what I feared most. It wasn't just a game for my benefit. Then I started looking closer at our joint credit card statements. Small charges here and there, that didn't make sense. A coffee shop outside her usual route, a small gift boutique that wasn't her style, an obscure online purchase that I couldn't place. Individually, they were nothing. Together, they formed a pattern of furtive spending, little financial breadcrumbs leading somewhere I didn't want to go. Her phone remained her most guarded possession, locked, face down, or tucked away. If she left it for even a second, she'd grab it the moment I walked into the room. It was like she was afraid I'd accidentally see something. And then Kevin's words from the purity echoed in my head. Chad's a bit of a ladies' man, always looking for attention. At the time, I brushed it off. Now it felt like a prophecy, a chilling, undeniable red flag. My gut was screaming. This wasn't just a game anymore. This wasn't just a wife test. This was something deeper, something darker. The emotional withdrawal, the constant criticism, the secretive phone, the unexplained errands, the hidden package, the small, strange charges, the avoidance of intimacy, it all coalesced into a terrifying picture. She always had an excuse for not wanting to be close. I'm so tired, Ethan, she'd sigh, turning away from me in bed. Long day, my head hurts. Every excuse felt like a rejection, a cold, calculated dismissal. I felt incredibly isolated, like I was shouting into a void, and Amber was just floating further and further away. The woman I married was gone, replaced by this guarded, hostile stranger. The confusion was unbearable. I needed answers. I couldn't live in this limbo. I decided right then and there. I wasn't going to confront her yet. I was going to watch. I was going to pay attention. I was going to find out what was really going on. My silent investigation had begun. The days blurred into a haze of suspicion and dread. My silent investigation began with the family computer. Amber rarely used it, usually opting for her phone or work laptop, but I knew she sometimes checked things on it. I navigated to the browser history, and my heart sank immediately. Sections were missing. Not just a few random sites, but entire blocks of time, completely erased. And then, there it was, a consistent pattern of incognito mode usage. NGL, it was like a gut punch. Who uses incognito mode in their own home unless they're trying to hide something? I decided to test her. Casually during dinner, I brought up Chloe's party. Did you ever run into Chad again? That guy was pretty loud. Amber's fork clattered against her plate. She practically jumped. Chad, why are you even bringing him up? God, Ethan, are you still jealous about that? It was a party. I was being friendly. You are so insecure. Her reaction was immediate, sharp, and totally out of proportion. Her face flushed. It was a clear, blazing red flag. That night, after she was asleep, I started searching. I went through her dresser, my hands shaking so bad I almost dropped a drawer. Underneath a pile of folded sweaters, shoved deep into a corner, I found it. A cheap pay-as-you-go burner phone. My deepest fear, confirmed. I felt a wave of nausea so intense I had to sit down on the floor. My chest felt like it was caving in. I unlocked it. No password, a chilling oversight on her part. And there they were. Messages, a flood of them, all from Chad, intimate, explicit. My hands literally trembled as I scrolled through them. Pet names, my love. Can't wait to see you. Detailed plans for meetups. Meet me at the usual spot, 3 p.m. on Tuesday. So glad we had that extra hour at the motel, babe. The usual spot and motel sent a fresh wave of sick bile rising in my throat. Every word was a knife twisting in my gut. I made a copy. My hands were steady now, fueled by a cold, desperate resolve. I took photos of everything. Contacts, dates, times, the most damning conversations. I needed undeniable proof. This wasn't a game. This was a full-blown affair. The waitress, Sarah Miller, the wife test. It was all a smokescreen, an elaborate deception to cover her own betrayal. The gaslighting, the constant criticism, the emotional distance, it all made sense now. She wasn't distant because she was stressed. She was distant because her heart and mind were somewhere else, with someone else. I started creating a detailed timeline. I cross-referenced the dates and times in the text with Amber's errands, her girl time, her shopping trips. Every single time she'd said she was busy or out with Brenda, she was with Chad. The pain was excruciating, but I forced myself to be methodical, detached. I was an investigator, gathering evidence for a case. My own case. The next day, under the guise of getting some general advice about marital property, I set up a meeting with a lawyer Brenda had recommended, a friend of hers, so hopefully discreet. I didn't tell her everything, just enough to explain my need for proof. The lawyer, a seasoned woman named Sarah, listened patiently. "Ethan, if you suspect infidelity, concrete evidence is key," she advised. "Dates, times, communications, financial records. The more you have, the stronger your position." Her words hardened my resolve, so I started documenting everything. Every time Amber left, the exact time she returned, her vague answers, her phone always locked or face down. I wrote it all down in a small notebook, meticulous and precise. I felt like a spy in my own home, a stranger to my own wife. Then I checked the bank statements again. But this time I dug deeper. I found it. A separate savings account, opened a few months ago, slowly accumulating funds. Funds from our joint account, transferred in small, inconspicuous amounts. And then, withdrawal after withdrawal, perfectly aligning with her shopping trips and the dates of her rendezvous with Chad. She wasn't just meeting him, she was spending money on him. Our money. Later that week, while she was showering, I quickly checked the hidden package I'd found. It was still unopened. But next to it, tucked under a pile of silk scarves, was a small, high-end jewelry store receipt, dated 2 weeks ago. The item, a men's designer watch. The price, eye-watering. My blood ran cold. This wasn't for me. It was too recent, too hidden. This was the gift she was buying for Chad, probably using the money from that secret account. The betrayal was so deep, so calculated. She was not just cheating. She was actively gaslighting me, manipulating me, and using our shared resources to do it. The hurt was still there, a raw, gaping wound. But beneath it, a cold, hard anger had taken root. I wasn't just confused anymore. I was furious and determined. Determined to expose her, to protect myself, and to make sure she paid for every lie. The days and nights since discovering the burner phone had been a living hell. I barely slept, fueled by a terrifying mix of adrenaline and despair. The first thing I did was review our home security camera footage. We had a few cameras, mostly for package delivery and general safety. NGL, I felt like a total creep doing it. But the alternative was living in a lie. What I saw confirmed my worst fears. Amber leaving the house at odd hours, sometimes late morning, sometimes in the middle of the afternoon, sometimes returning after I was already asleep. There were even a couple of times she pulled up, paused for a moment in the driveway, and then drove off again, only to return much later. Brief stops. Where was she going? Next, I bought a small, discreet GPS tracker. It felt invasive, unethical even. But the cold, calculating part of my brain took over. I needed to know. I slipped it under her car. The data that streamed to my phone was a punch to the gut. Repeated visits to Chad's apartment building. Long stops at a park on the outskirts of town. Even a couple of times to an address that turned out to be a local motel. My stomach churned. The emotional numbness was wearing off, replaced by raw, searing pain. I knew I couldn't do this alone. I needed professional help. After another discreet chat with my lawyer, Sarah, I hired a private investigator, a guy named Dave, recommended by Sarah as the best at what he does. I gave him the addresses, the times, and Chad's name. I needed concrete, irrefutable proof. Dave's first report came a few days later, a cold, clinical document that tore my world apart. Photos, Amber, and Chad, walking hand in hand out of a coffee shop, laughing intimately as they entered Chad's apartment building. Pictures of them kissing, openly, casually, like a normal couple. Seeing it, physically seeing her with him, was a whole other level of betrayal. My heart didn't just break, it shattered into a million pieces. The profound sense of heartbreak was overwhelming. I couldn't breathe. The PI's reports detailed more. He'd caught Amber at the exact boutique I'd seen on the credit card statement, buying something small, expensive looking, and wrapping it carefully. His report also included photos of her handing a wrapped gift to Chad. It perfectly aligned with the separate bank account and the designer watch receipt I'd found. She wasn't just cheating, she was investing in this other relationship with our money. I also realized the extent of her deception. Every time she said she was working late, or with Brenda, she was with Chad. Brenda, my friend, was just an unknowing shield. I cautiously called Brenda. Hey Brenda, I know this is random, but Amber said you guys went to that new Italian place last Tuesday? I was thinking of taking her. Brenda hesitated. Oh, no, Ethan, we didn't. We were supposed to, but she canceled last minute, said something about feeling sick. My blood ran cold. Another lie. Brenda was oblivious, and Amber was a master manipulator. Then came the email. I'd remembered Amber occasionally using her old, rarely checked personal email. On a hunch, I logged in. There it was, an exchange between her and Chad. Not just flirtation, but discussing future plans, our secret, and how worth it this was. Worth it, meaning our marriage, our life, was disposable. Just a hurdle to overcome. The ultimate blow arrived with Dave's next update, video footage. Amber and Chad entering a hotel together. My vision blurred. There was no denying it. No more wife test. No more overthinking. This was it. The absolute, undeniable truth. I went into overdrive. My lawyer's words echoed, prepare for a strong case. I started separating my finances, quietly, meticulously. I moved money into my own accounts, canceled shared credit cards, and locked down anything I could. It felt like I was dismantling my own life, piece by painful piece. Every document, every photo, every text, every video clip, I compiled it all into a single encrypted digital file, a fortress of proof. The emotions swirling inside me were a violent storm. Anger so hot it burned, sadness so deep it felt like a physical ache, and a cold, burning desire for justice, for her to face the consequences of her actions. I consulted Sarah again, this time with the full dossier of evidence. We discussed divorce strategy, custody, asset division. The conversation was clinical, but my heart was racing, my hands clenched under the table. I couldn't pretend anymore. Couldn't live another day under this suffocating weight of lies and betrayal. The thought of confronting her, of shattering the carefully constructed facade she'd built, filled me with both dread and a grim satisfaction. It was time. Time to unmask her double life. Time to confront Amber with everything. The decision was made. The confrontation was coming. The pain hadn't dulled, but a cold, hard clarity had set in. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was strategizing. This wasn't going to be some messy, screaming match. This was going to be a surgical strike. First, the location and time. Not our house. Too many emotional traps, too easy for her to make a scene. I chose a quiet public park bench we sometimes visited. Neutral territory, but also a subtle reminder of what we once had. I'd set it up for a Sunday afternoon when I knew she'd be home, expecting a lazy day. No excuses. I needed backup, even if it was just moral support from a distance. I called Mark. Hey man, can you be on standby Sunday afternoon? I'm going to talk to Amber about a lot of stuff. Might need a friend to vent to later. I kept it vague, but he knew enough to agree. Brenda too. I didn't tell them the full truth yet, but I hinted at serious marital problems. I spent hours crafting a script. Sounds crazy, right? But I needed to stay calm, to stick to the facts, to avoid letting her gaslighting drag me back into her manipulative orbit. I anticipated her denials, her tears, her attempts to blame me. Amber, I know everything, would be my opening line, delivered flatly. Then a systematic, undeniable presentation of the evidence. I mentally rehearsed it over and over. Here's the burner phone, here are the texts, here's the PI report with photos. Here are the credit card statements for Chad's gifts. Here's the hotel footage. I knew it would be brutal, but there was no other way. All the evidence, the photos, the burner phone contents, the financial records, the PI reports, I had it all on a secured USB drive and in a cloud folder, ready to be displayed on my laptop or phone. Unforgettable, undeniable. Every piece was cross-referenced, dated, and time-stamped. My lawyer, Sarah, was fully briefed. The divorce papers were drafted, ready for filing the moment I gave the word. She advised me on keeping everything calm, especially during the confrontation, and to protect myself legally. Over the next few days, I started packing Amber's things. Subtly, small boxes, inconspicuous items from her closet, toiletries from the bathroom. I moved them to our guest bedroom, out of sight. My aim there was to have everything packed and ready to go by Sunday. A clear message. This was final. Before the confrontation, I knew I had to tell Brenda and Mark about the divorce, even if I wasn't ready to spill every sordid detail. Amber and I are separating, I told them in my voice heavy. It's complicated. Things haven't been good for a while. They were shocked but supportive. I wanted them to hear it from me first, to understand the gravity of the situation. They deserve that much. I also went through the house, securing my personal documents, birth certificate, passport, business contracts, my photography equipment, my hard drives with years of work, sentimental items, photos of my grandparents, gifts from my late mother, all safely tucked away, ready to be moved if needed. I knew once the bomb dropped, chaos would ensue. I also made a call to a locksmith. He'd be on standby Sunday afternoon, ready to come and change all the locks the moment Amber left. I wouldn't risk her trying to get back in, or worse, taking anything else. And then there was the larger circle, our mutual friends, her family. I decided I would reveal the full extent of her actions, not out of spite, but because her deception was so profound, so calculated, that they deserved to know the truth about the woman they thought they knew. She wouldn't just face legal consequences, she would face moral ones too. The shame, the judgment, the loss of trust, it was all part of the consequence she had earned. I made arrangements for her temporary living situation. A short-term rental I'd found online paid for a month. Here are the keys, I would say. You can move in tonight. I wanted to show her there was a clear path out, no room for argument or trying to stay. I braced myself for the anger, the tears, the inevitable love bombing and manipulation tactics she would undoubtedly try to deploy. I knew she'd try to twist it, to make me out to be the bad guy, but I was ready. I had the facts, I had the truth. This was about regaining control, about taking my life back. This was about justice. You know, it's wild how quickly your life can pivot, how a seemingly stable world can just crumble. Stick around to the end to see how life's costly choices unfold. Sunday afternoon arrived, gray and heavy, mirroring the storm inside me. We met at the park bench just as planned. Amber looked annoyed, like I was wasting her precious me time. She sat down, crossing her arms. "Ethan, what is this all about? You've been weird all week. Can we just talk like normal adults? Or are you going to accuse me of something ridiculous again?" Her voice was laced with that familiar, dismissive tone. I took a deep breath, the script playing in my head. "Amber," I said, my voice flat, calm, "I know everything." Her eyes widened for a split second, then narrowed. She scoffed. "Know everything? About what? My busy schedule? My need for personal space? God, Ethan, I told you, you're overthinking. You're being paranoid. Are you tracking me? Are you going through my things? That's actually psychotic." The gaslighting started immediately, exactly as I predicted. Her voice was already rising, trying to make me the crazy one. I didn't flinch. I reached into my bag and pulled out the burner phone. I turned it on, scrolled to a particularly explicit exchange with Chad, and held it out to her. "This is the burner phone you've been using, and these are the texts from Chad." Her face went utterly white. The color drained from her cheeks, and her jaw actually dropped. She looked at the phone, then at me, then back at the phone like she couldn't compute what she was seeing. Her denial faltered, the carefully constructed facade cracking. But then, true to form, she tried to pivot. Okay, so what? A few texts? You've been so distant, Ethan, so boring. I needed attention. You pushed me away. She was trying to blame me, to shift responsibility for her actions. I didn't say a word. I just pulled out my laptop, opened the encrypted file, and showed her the PI's photos and video clips. Chad and her holding hands, kissing, entering Chad's apartment, the hotel footage. Image after image, undeniable proof, laid bare on the screen. That's when she broke. The anger, the defiance, all of it crumbled. She started to sob, loud, theatrical gasps for air. Oh my God, Ethan. I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. A terrible, awful mistake. Please, please don't do this. I love you. I swear it means nothing. She reached for my hand, but I pulled it away. Her tears were flowing freely, but I saw no genuine remorse, only fear of being caught. A mistake? I asked, my voice still eerily calm. Was it a mistake when you opened a separate bank account to fund your mistake? Was it a mistake when you bought Chad a designer watch with our money? I pulled up the financial records, the transfers, the boutique receipt. Her pleas instantly turned to fury. You went through my things? You hired a PI. You are disgusting, Ethan. That's an invasion of privacy. You're the one with the problem, not me. Her face was blotchy, tears streaming, but her eyes were blazing with a cold rage. It stopped being my problem when you chose to betray our marriage, Amber. I countered, still calm. And don't worry about your privacy. I've already packed your bags. I slid a printout across the bench, showing her the address of the short-term rental I'd secured. The keys are with the locksmith. He'll be there to change the locks as soon as you've moved your things out. I've already paid for a month. Her face contorted. Packed my bags? You can't do this. I'll ruin you. I'll tell everyone what a psycho you are. I'll turn Brenda and Mark against you. The threat started, desperation seeping into her voice. You won't be ruining anything, Amber, I said, my voice steady. My lawyer has advised me on the legal and financial consequences of your actions. And as for Brenda and Mark, they already know we're divorcing. And soon they'll know why. I have all the proof. The words hung in the air, heavy and final. She looked utterly defeated, like a puppet whose strings had been cut. The harsh reality of her choices, the immediate and undeniable repercussions, slammed into her. She had nowhere to hide, no one to manipulate. I then handed her a copy of the divorce petition, neatly stapled. My lawyer will be in touch. This is over. She stared at the papers, then at me, her eyes hollow. She stood up, her body language stiff with shock and a dawning despair. Without another word, she turned and walked away, a shell of the woman who had arrived, leaving behind nothing but the lingering scent of betrayal. The confrontation was over. The game was up. The fallout was swift and brutal. As soon as Amber walked away from that park bench, I called Mark and Brenda. I laid out everything, the burner phone, the text, the PI reports, the hidden bank account, the gifts for Chad. I didn't mince words. Their reactions were a mix of shock, disbelief, and profound disappointment. Brenda especially was furious that Amber had used her as an unwitting alibi. I can't believe her, she kept saying, shaking her head. She used me, Ethan. She lied to me too. Both of them immediately offered their full support, and honestly, that meant the world. From there, word spread like wildfire through our mutual friend group. I didn't actively gossip, but I didn't stop the truth from getting out either. When friends called, concerned about the divorce news, I simply told them the facts. Amber was having an affair. I have proof. NGL, it was emotionally exhausting but necessary. Suddenly, Chad's involvement wasn't just my secret anymore. People knew. His reputation as a ladies' man became less charming and more predatory. I heard whispers, saw the sideways glances directed at him at social gatherings. He even lost a couple of freelance contracts, apparently, because clients didn't want the drama associated with him. Good. He deserved it. Amber faced immediate social consequences. Friends, especially the women in our circle who had once admired her, started distancing themselves. Text messages went unanswered. Invitations stopped coming. The girl time she used to fake became genuinely scarce. It was harsh to watch, but a part of me felt a grim satisfaction. This wasn't me exacting revenge. This was her own actions coming home to roost. The outpouring of support I received was overwhelming. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from friends, family, and even acquaintances. "Ethan, I'm so sorry. You deserve better. I always thought something was off. Glad you found out. Stay strong." It validated everything, solidified my decision, and slowly, painfully, started to mend some of the cracks in my self-worth. The divorce proceedings officially began. Amber predictably tried to contest some of the terms, attempting to claim a larger share of assets, feigning ignorance of certain financial transactions. But my lawyer Sarah was a shark. With the meticulous evidence I had collected, the burner phone data, the PI reports, the detailed financial statements showing the separate account and the money spent on Chad, Amber had no leg to stand on. Sarah secured a favorable settlement for me, protecting my assets and my future. Amber tried to save face, of course. She started spreading rumors that I was emotionally abusive, that I was obsessed, that I had driven her into Chad's arms. But those rumors evaporated quickly. Too many people had seen her blatant flirting at Chloe's party. Too many had witnessed her behavior in the preceding weeks. And too many now knew the undeniable proof I possessed. Her lies just made her look even more desperate and dishonest. As for Chad, his smooth-talking persona took a massive hit. Turns out, being known as the guy who breaks up marriages isn't a great look, especially in a relatively close-knit community. His casual flings probably dried up, and his professional network started shrinking. People just avoided him. Slowly, agonizingly, I started the process of healing. The emotional numbness returned sometimes, a welcome shield from the pain. Other times, the anger would flare, or the sadness would hit like a physical blow. But with each passing day, I felt a little lighter, a little more like myself. I started focusing on my photography again, finding solace and purpose behind the lens. Amber, from what I heard, struggled. She lost her marriage, her friends, her social standing. Her carefully curated life, built on a foundation of lies, had completely crumbled. She was isolated, left to deal with the consequences of her choices alone. There was a profound sense of vindication. The truth had come out. She faced not just legal repercussions, but the moral consequences she deserved. The community, our former community, reacted with a mixture of sympathy for me and condemnation for her actions. It wasn't about revenge for me anymore. It was about integrity. I handled it with logic, with principle, with irrefutable facts. Now I'm looking forward, planning for my future, a future free from deception, free from manipulation, free from the twisted wife test drama. It's not easy, but it's real. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I can actually breathe. The divorce, it was finally over. Months of legal back and forth, but with Sarah's expert guidance and the undeniable mountain of evidence, the final decree was exactly what I needed. Favorable terms for me, reflecting Amber's infidelity and blatant disregard for our shared life. When the papers were signed, I felt less triumphant and more empty. A profound emptiness, but also a quiet sense of peace. The storm had passed. Amber's reputation, permanently tarnished. NGL, it was brutal to witness, but it was entirely self-inflicted. Her attempts to spin stories, to paint me as the villain, fell flat because the truth, backed by receipts and photos and video, was simply too powerful. She lost most of her friends, the ones who weren't already aware of her manipulative tendencies. I heard through Brenda that even her professional life took a hit. Some potential clients had heard the whispers, and trustworthiness became a major issue for her. The stability she once had, the social network, the veneer of respectability, it was all gone. And Chad, he just vanished from the scene. The ladies' man shtick wore thin very quickly when he was exposed as a marriage wrecker. His own friends probably distanced themselves, not wanting to be associated with that kind of drama. He paid his own price, a stark reminder that actions have consequences, even for the other guy. For me, the immediate aftermath was all about self-care. I dove headfirst into therapy, processing years of gaslighting, confusion, and the searing pain of betrayal. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I reconnected with my photography, spending hours in my darkroom, finding solace in the creative process. I picked up old hobbies, went hiking, joined a casual sports league. I rebuilt my life, brick by painful brick. Amber, meanwhile, struggled. Financially, emotionally, she was adrift. The comfortable life we'd built, the security she'd taken for granted, it was all gone. She'd made her bed, and now she had to lie in it alone. There were a few desperate attempts to reach out to me, vague texts about missing what we had, but I maintained firm, unyielding boundaries. My future was forward, not backward. Looking back, the wife test at Chloe's party wasn't just a misstep. It was the first visible red flag, the brazen opening act of a much deeper, more calculated betrayal. It was the moment she showed her true colors, believing herself immune to consequence. The cold, logical part of me knew that even then, it was a test, not of me, but of her own moral compass. And she failed spectacularly. The peace I found wasn't about revenge, it was about truth. Knowing I handled it with integrity, that I sought evidence and facts rather than just lashing out, that I protected myself and ultimately found freedom from a deceptive, manipulative person. I learned invaluable lessons about trust, about setting boundaries, about listening to my gut when red flags appear. My world now feels lighter, more authentic. I'm surrounded by genuine friends like Mark and Brenda who stuck by me. My family has been a rock. I'm cautiously opening myself up to new possibilities, new relationships, knowing I'm stronger and wiser now. Amber is still out there, living with the enduring consequences of her choices. But she's no longer my problem. I've navigated the storm of betrayal, emerged from the wreckage, and I'm ready for a genuinely happy next chapter. The divorce was finalized, making the legal separation official. Amber's carefully constructed image, once her greatest asset, was now permanently fractured. Her reputation in the community was ruined, and NGL, the professional repercussions, meant she struggled to regain any stable footing. Chad, the ladies' man, pretty much disappeared from our circle, facing his own backlash for his part in the whole mess. For me, the immediate aftermath was tough, but I found my way forward. Therapy helped me unpack the years of gaslighting and betrayal. I learned to trust my instincts again, to recognize red flags early, and to build stronger boundaries. The anger eventually faded, replaced by a cold sense of clarity and, surprisingly, peace. I often reflect on that wife test at Chloe's party. It wasn't just a moment of bad judgment. It was the opening act of a deeper, calculated deceit. Amber's choices had profound and continuing consequences. She lost everything that truly mattered: her marriage, her friends, her standing. She's isolated now, living with the weight of her deceit. I, on the other hand, am building a new life, grounded in truth and genuine connections. The lessons learned were hard, but they've made me stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever comes next, free from the drama and lies.